Remember that the final products of glycolysis were NADH, ATP, and pyruvic acid. Now, if oxygen is available, pyruvic acid will break down further to form lots of ATP and CO2. The pyruvic acid will enter the mitochondria, enter the citric acid cycle, and the hydrogens that are released from the breakdown of the molecules will be transferred over to the electron transport chain. There are lots and lots of ATP will be formed, up to 36 molecules of ATP per glucose molecule. Carbon dioxide and water are also formed. So the citric acid cycle itself begins when the pyruvic acid enters the mitochondria and is converted to acetyl coenzyme A. That acetyl coenzyme A will enter the citric acid cycle by joining with oxaloacetate. Acetyl-CoA here is a 2-carbon molecule. It combines with oxaloacetate, a 4-carbon molecule, to form a 6-carbon citric acid cycle. This is the start molecule of the citric acid cycle. This molecule undergoes a series of steps, each catalyzed by a different enzyme. The cycle, this metabolic pathway, will continue as a cycle as long as oxaloacetate is formed as the final step. That oxaloacetate is needed to pull in the acetyl-CoA to begin the citric acid cycle. You will notice as these molecules go through the biochemical pathway that hydrogens are released and they're grabbed up by NADH. Here's some NADH being formed from NAD+. Here's more NADH formed. Here's another molecule over here, FAD, that combines with 2 hydrogens to form FADH2. So actually we have 2 hydrogen carriers at this point. All of these high energy electrons and their hydrogens are carried over to the electron transport chain. In addition, all of the carbons that came in our original pyruvic acid are lost as CO2. So every single carbon from the glucose we eat is lost as CO2. Glucose is C6H12O6, so 6 CO2 are produced by the complete breakdown of glucose. For each citric acid molecule, 1 ATP is produced. Doesn't seem like very much. 8 hydrogen atoms are transferred to NAD+ and FAD, and 2 CO2 are produced. So the majority of the ATP is formed in the electron transport chain. The 2 hydrogen carriers, FADH and FADH2, carry their hydrogens, and those hydrogens have very high energy electrons in them, carry them over to the electron transport chain. This electron transport chain is located in the membrane of the mitochondria, and the enzymes that catalyze each step are located next to each other on the membrane so that the steps can occur in order. So the electrons are transferred to an enzyme called ATP synthase. The hydrogens pass through the ATP synthase a little bit like water flowing over a dam. As that water flows over a dam, it creates large amounts of energy on the downside of the dam. The hydrogens passing through the ATP synthase provide the energy to phosphorylate ADP and form ATP. In addition, water is formed because oxygen is used as the very last step to grab onto those final 2 hydrogens. Here's a summary of cellular respiration. The first step is glycolysis. It begins with a 6-carbon glucose. It is converted to 2 3-carbon pyruvic acids. 2 ATP are needed to get the process going. 4 are produced, so there is a net of 2 ATP. The second step is the citric acid cycle. The 3-carbon pyruvic acid enters the mitochondria. It loses a carbon as carbon dioxide. It's converted to acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA joins oxaloacetate to form the first molecule of the citric acid cycle. This molecule is called citric acid. For each citric acid, a series of reactions will occur, and carbons will be lost as CO2, and ATP will be formed. High energy electrons are grabbed onto by hydrogen carriers. Those hydrogen carriers consist of NAD+ and FAD. The final step, the electron transport chain, is where most of the ATP is produced. Those high energy electrons are brought over to the electron transport chain. They shoot through, those hydrogens shoot through the ATP synthase in a process that converts the ADP to ATP. Oxygen is needed for the very final step to form water, and this final step is the aerobic step of aerobic respiration. All of our food molecules can enter the citric acid cycle. If we eat too much sugar, it's broken down to glucose by way of hydrolysis. That glucose, the monosaccharides, can enter the mitochondria for complete breakdown for energy. Those monosaccharides may be converted to fat and be stored in our adipose tissue. Those monosaccharides may be converted to amino acids. Here you can see how our proteins, our carbohydrates, and our fats can all enter the citric acid cycle at different stages.